for that nice introduction. Toastmaster of the day, fellow Toastmasters, and dear guests, a very warm good evening to one and all.
Good evening.
Today, my guest is very special person, soft-spoken, champion speaker, and a professional of wide experience. Recently, he conducted a series on the very tricky subject, emotional intelligence. Friends, how many of you have heard emotional intelligence before marriage? I'm sure very less. We should have checked the level of emotional intelligence of our partners before marriage to see if it was sufficiently good. Yes, tremendously missed. Better than never. Better late than never. I'm sure that his tips may be useful for every one of us. Let's know more about emotional intelligence. Warm welcome, Mr. Harish Bhargav.
Thank you.
Mr. Harish, what was the inspiration to conduct workshops on a tough topic like emotional intelligence?
First of all, thanks to the three clerks as well as to DTM Shibu Xavier for giving this opportunity. DTM Shibu, for that question. First thing, we all have been students, and all along we were told by our parents and our teachers to study well and score good marks. And nowadays we are out of schools and we go back to schools and colleges for reunions. And do we find that it is the most studious people who have emerged as the most successful in our batches? What is your experience? What is your experience? Did you find that was it the most studious in your classmates who have emerged as the most successful nowadays when you go back for reunions? In my experience, no. And when I checked with many people, they all said no. And there was this Daniel Goldman, he said that in America, he's a PhD in psychology, that his experience as well as his no. And then this is a universal phenomenon. People who score the highest marks, they are not the ones who emerge the most successful. And that set Daniel Goldman in the path of writing a book on emotional intelligence, and that attracted me. And I thought that it would be beneficial for me as well as for the general public.
Thank you, DTM Harish Bhargavan. It was a wonderful answer, but sound like a prepared speech. Please tell us the real personal reason.
Thank you, DTM. Shibu, it looks like you are a very professional interviewer. You're getting the real thing out. Thing is, like, all along my life, I have been fascinated by the concept of leadership, because what has made human beings the unique species on earth is nothing but leadership, the ability to collect together in groups. And I used to ask all the people, whenever there were some corporate trainers, I used to go up to them and ask, what is the secret of leadership? And they used to provide conflicting answers, and that provided no clarity. Whereas when I started reading this book, it came out that many of the snippets that we have learned from here and there, as if the tone of the voice causes 90% of issues rather than the content of the message. This was an eye-opener for me, because all along from my studies, what I learned is that it is not how it is delivered, but what is delivered that matters. It is entirely wrong. Not only that, there are so many things like this. So, because it's a collection of so many of such pieces of wisdom. That's why.
Thank you. This is what we expected. And my second question is, emotional intelligence is very much needed in the school curriculum. What is your perspective?
Right. I totally agree with that. No, but when it comes to school curriculum, we need to consider the child's psychology as well. If you take a child of about 5 years of age, that child may not be able to grasp the idea of honor, Like if you try to teach them emotional intelligence and tell them that the way you behave is actually, it will look awkward in front of others, the child may not have the maturity to understand the concept of honor. So while it is very important, we need to design curriculum scientifically in order to impart this kind of learning. And to go back, why it is important to teach children about learning. If you ask students, what constitutes success in life? Almost all of them, they will say, if you are rich and famous, that means success. But that is not true. People who are rich are not necessarily happy or healthy. People who are famous, usually they are miserable because of the constant attention. What really makes people healthy and happy in old age is actually good quality relations, but we never teach our children how to nurture quality relations in our curriculum.
Exactly, Mr. Harish. This is what is happening in this modern era. And my next question, I think it's interesting to all of us since we all have family. Mr. Harish, emotional intelligence is one of the key aspects in our life. Anchor is the biggest enemy, no doubt, no doubt. What is the best solution to control anger? I hope this answer would help me personally too.
Yes, anger is very tricky. Anger, it's a very difficult thing, and also it is the most seductive thing. If you look at the movies, you will find that anger is glorified. But anger has got very serious consequences. We all have heard about the Me Too, not Me Too, the Black Lives Matter movement, and also the riots that happened in America following the killing of George Floyd. It all started as a small altercation. Just somebody suspected that a $20 bill was a fake one. And it could have been settled far easily, but it all escalated too much. So the trick here in anger is to control it right at the beginning stages. Beyond a point, anger has a tendency to escalate and get into a spiral. And two of the best techniques is first to distract. I mean, if you're angry, just take a break, go for a walk. And another thing is to reframe. If you feel that you're angry towards someone because they did something, try to think from their perspective. Be a little more empathetic.
Rightly said, Mr. Harish. That was a quite sad incident. My next question is related to new generations. As you know, these new generations are quite emotional compared to old, like us. Any specific reason?
To be frank, I haven't seen any scientific study that conclusively says that the new generation is more emotional compared to old. But there could be, if it could well be so, maybe because of the abundance of electronic gadgets and social media. Earlier, I have experienced it. When I get into Facebook, it was like my thoughts were being reflected back to me because Facebook algorithm was kind of like an echo chamber that increases polarization. Maybe that could be a reason to increase polarization and emotional outburst among the new generation. But I haven't seen a scientific, literature on that. Yeah,
I think it is there is no scientific findings, but still it is. I
could
think
be.
it is evident to everywhere. It is something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you, DTM Harish Bhargavan. And my last question is, what one tip would you like to give from the field of emotional intelligence for us to practice?
Thank you, Shibu Savior. Uh, there are so many things that has come out of this book. Like when I go through that concept of amygdala hijack, delayed gratification, and so and so. But the one thing that I would like to pick up is whenever in my childhood itself, whenever I used to do something so well, always there was a nagging doubt in mind: Am I worthy of doing that? And now it has come clear to me through this that it is a stupid thought. Like, I am no person to judge another person's capability, whether somebody will be capable of achieving something tomorrow. I am no person to judge. That is equally applicable for me in my case as well. So The biggest lesson is never ever judge a person, but judge the deed. If you want to give a negative feedback, please criticize the deed and not the person. Back to you.
Thank you, TTM Harish Bhargavan. It was quite an interesting session to all of us. My dear Toastmasters, thank you for watching. And I'm sure that we all fortunate to have this wonderful person tonight. Thank you once again, and back to you, Toastmaster of the Day.